police can pick them up and bring them to government industrial school based on the fact that they were not with an adult or in care or whatever. No, you could imagine if a child was walking, and I'm not saying that this has happened, but I'm just drawing a scenario. A child walking from its grandmother's house to its mother's house late in the night, which it shouldn't be, but it can happen for one reason or the other. And you could have, at that time, just pick up the child without any conversation with parents, anybody else, and carry it to the government industrial school. Now, I'm not saying that these things happened, but it could have happened at that particular point in time. So it is necessary that as we always talk about this new national consciousness, begin the process of changing a lot of the things that went before. Mr. President, I find that there were a number of things that were mentioned before, which I will not go over because I think they're very salient points, and I thank the Senator for them because there are a lot of things that I have, in my own small way, spoken about for many, many years as to how we deal with things. But there's something that this country, not just senators, this country as a whole, continues to use as an excuse. And I hold a very different view on this. The whole idea of poverty. Now, there's no denying that poverty plays a role in people's behavior. Because at the very core of every single human being, there is the urge to survive. And the urge to survive is not driven by morals or ethics. It is driven by the urge to survive. And so therefore, a person who grows up in circumstances where there are challenges such as economical challenges, there are challenges even in terms of ethics and morals, the behavior, like all behaviors, is learned. So what else will you expect if you're in an environment where you have this urge to survive like everyone else? You have very limited resources in terms of money or access to money. You have no property, you have nothing, but you have to eat. You have to do all the other things that other people do. And then on top of it, you have an educational system, and I smiled when I heard the Honorable Senator talk about changing how we view education. Because I am one of few people who, in my own way, reject it. Because you had, especially when it was a young person, people who told me then, remember like yesterday, that when I passed the exam to go to law school, I should change my friends. The people I grew up with. I should change them. Because now you're a large boy. You can't walk up with these people that go to Princess Margaret or going to St. George Secondary School. A lot of nonsense. So it's interesting that we get to this part now, but we keep making the same mistake over and over and over, believing that only formal education will change or solve the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, please note that the man who created the atom bomb was a well-educated man. The man who decides that we want to have Star Wars, they are very well-educated people. The people who come up with economic systems that crushed small island states like ours are well educated, but they're still evil or antisocial. So it cannot be the realm of education alone. There's a conversation which we oftentimes run from. Because when you talk about it, it goes into the realm of being in some people's mind esoteric. Mr. President, if a society is not anchored in some sort of moral values, some sort of ethics, some code of conduct by which it carries itself, you can educate it all you like. It will still crumble and fall from the inside because it does not have a solid foundation of how it deals with its people and itself. And so when we are having the conversation about education, as all of the research continues to show that there is a link between criminal activity and lack of education, and I'm not denying it, because to deny it would be foolhardy. But I want us to also understand that there is a wider gamut of education that needs to be undertaken. And the more we refuse to look at it, the more we are going to face the problems of having young people in conflict with the law. It is interesting that a state, I don't remember which one it is, in the United States of America has now decreed that there must be the 10 Commandments in all of the schools and this sort of things on shore. Interesting. Very, 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 very interesting that this should be happening at this particular point in time. But I also go back to a problem that we have that, again, we refuse to look at. The disintegration of the family. And it is not just the nuclear family as we knew it, it is the family across the board. Where in an old African proverb, it took a village to raise a child. And you had those interventions. Look, let me draw my own life so that you get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. I came to this country in 1970 as a 6-year-old to live with my grandparents. My mother and father were in England. In that space where I lived, there's a house to the left with my aunt, her husband, my cousins. To the right, there was another aunt with her husband, her cousins. The center was my grandmother's house where I lived with another aunt, her husband, and her children. They weren't rich, not by any stretch of the imagination, but you had all of those interventions. Persons at different levels in age, persons at different levels in education, that would help to raise you, to give you an idea of how you speak to your grandmother, how you deal with the people within your life, and how you deal with the people on the outside of your family. Who you are supposed to, if you see them on the road, speak to. When you go to school, how you're supposed to behave as you become a representative of this family. These are very simple things. They're not rocket science. It was a part and parcel of the barbarian living. We have lost these things. And through losing them, we've also lost the ability to take responsibility and to be accountable for a lot of the things that are happening with our young children. Now, this legislation, which seeks to better the experience of children coming in conflict with the law, that is the fundamental basis upon which all of this is done. Gives us the opportunity to, and I'll use this word, abide by conventions that we've already signed off on for many, many years. But it also gives us the ability to begin the process of breaking the cycle of discrimination that people who come into conflict with the law from a young age face for many years. I can tell you, Mr. President, as a person working in the government industrial schools, although it was called clear and plain, the government industrial schools, people refer to it all the time as a prison for children, which it was never designed to be, or it never was. So that when I hear people talking now about teachers and all sorts of things, the school has teachers already for many years. We have had students who have left the government industrial school and went on to university. We have had students who came out of the school and leave, and leave this country. You know why they had to leave this country? Because the society itself is so discriminates against them, can't find a job, can't do anything, right? They're ostracized as a Dodds boy or a Dodds girl, right? And so we've got to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, how did we contribute to where we are today? This is because none of us can wash our hands clear of it and pretend that we can contribute to it. I talk about this in here already. I lived through an era where children who were having difficulties with education were sent out in the garden. That was me. Was sent out in the garden. So you put a stigma on agriculture. Now at 60 years old, I'm listening to people talking about doing things in agriculture. When you tell people, children, and tell them, go in garden, you got a sense? Or in my case, go and sing and dance because you don't got a sense? Neither. It is mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling how in 2024 we're still having these conversations, as opposed to how we ostracize people, and then when the people react, we now got to react to. The important thing though, Mr. President, is that the steps are being taken, again, to ensure that those people who come into conflict with the law are given the best possible opportunity to not only have justice served, but how they should be handled and treated as children. You know, I have lived a very interesting life. Done a lot of different jobs, traveled, seen a lot of different things. But the one thing I know that used to serve Barbados well, which people, for some unknown reason, when they're ready, they will run to the Bible and pick up this word, pride, and destroy it as it being a bad thing. Barbadians had a certain amount of pride many, many years ago, especially when I was a youngster growing up. They took pride in a lot of things, took pride in keeping around them clean. We say things like, cleanliness is next to godliness. And that clean didn't only mean a physical environment, it meant how your own deportment. It also spoke to your tongue, not out on the road, as people say, cussing and carrying on and all these kind of things. It was frowned upon. Certain behaviors, stealing, or you could not dare, for many of us in here, you could not dare come home, even with a pencil that you bought from a friend of yours, and forget it. Your mother go to a bag, or whoever your guardian is, and ask a question, where this come from? Who does this belong to? And the next thing you know is that you carry it right back tomorrow, and don't let me see it in here again, or whatever it is. One of the problems we have, and I know that people keep saying all the time, okay, but if you're born in this particular environment, then you must operate like that environment. There are too many good stories of persons who were born in less than ideal conditions, who were able to rise above those things and do well for themselves. The unfortunate thing is that the press, and not pardon the pun, the depressed, can be depressing at times when you see a lot of the things that they write. They don't usually, and the Honorable Senator before me spoke about it, they don't oftentimes give any coverage to the good things that are happening amongst our young people. You know, we can see all the things with all the people who have been shot over the last month or so, and we continue to see, we don't see the good things that people are doing. And there needs to be balance in that conversation, because if you're only seeing one particular thing all the time, you begin to believe that this is all that is happening in Barbados. This is all that it's about. But there are a lot of other good things that are happening that we need also to have highlighted, so that those other persons who might find themselves on the wrong side of the track can also see that when they do good things, that too is being promoted. Because in today's world, and the point was made earlier about social media and things, in today's world, for some strange and inexplicable reason, our young people believe that the whole world must know them. The whole world must know you. You go out to dinner, you say, better take a picture of it, put it up, look, me here at such and such a place, eating and carrying on. Why? For who? These things, these are, again, foreign values and foreign things that come into our country. Remember, Mighty Gabby sang a song, he talked about cultural penetration. We are suffering the effects of it right now. If Barbados had a very strong culture, half of the things that we're dealing with, having to build these kinds of residencies and put all of these things in place, it wouldn't happen. And I always ask one particular question. A lot of people get vexed when they ask it, but you ask it here now too, because that's the kind of person I am. Why is it that when we talk about all of this and that happening all over the world, going to the Muslim states of this world, you don't hear anything about it? Half of them you don't hear, and if they got the small, negligible. And then you will hear, oh, there's Sharia law and this thing and the next thing, all kinds of things. But we play for liberty. We got all the liberties in the world, so-called liberties. You have no control. But something has to be wrong. Something has to be wrong. And we would do well to begin to get back to the whole idea of the village raising the child, the values and the ethics must be at the core of fighting the problems that we face. And I just wanted to make those points where that is concerned. But to get back to the substantive legislation here, a lot of it is, as I said earlier, to improve on a lot of things that were done in the past. And the Honorable Senator made the call for consistent training, and I would support that 100%, because as the world changes, people are always changing. And you're going to always find different challenges coming at you. Things that we did not dream of when we were young people are normal today. And our young people face challenges that we would have never dreamed of when we were younger. There are some things that are staple, but then there are always new things. And you have to be constantly training people. She also mentioned the whole idea of psychological testing, if I put it that way, of people going into that. I dare say that psychological testing, not just for people going into work at places like government industrial school, because, and she would know, because her dad was in the police force, people going into the police force, people going into the army, people going into customs, all of these points, you should also start thinking about that in terms of psychological testing, because there is such a thing as an antisocial personality. And I've said it in here before and I will say it again. An antisocial personality, if it means that they have to go to school and get 49 PhDs to do the most damage in the world, they will do it. They will do it because that is how their mind works. That's how their mind works. And until we are able, even in schools, to begin to have assessment on children, understand the environments within which they come, because it seems to me, and I could be very wrong, but it seems to me that oftentimes we believe that because we had a certain upbringing, that everybody has it. It is not so. It is not so. And because you have a particular kind of value system within your household, there are other persons who have something completely different. And you have to be able to not only at the back end, then got to deal with the problem, but I guess the old people always used to make the point of prevention is better than cure. We need to be able to start thinking in terms at the primary school level, that we begin the process of really having the social workers and psychologists or whoever else is needed on call, that you can deal with some of the problems as they arise there. The other thing is the sharing of information in this time. I can tell you, again, working within the system, if the sharing of information between the various agencies is not good, you can still have a lot of unnecessary problems in the same facilities that you're going to put the children in. And I've seen it before where, and I wouldn't say what happened, but I would draw a simple analogy so that you get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. That place like government industrial school, a person comes to it, all you know is that this person went to court on a particular charge or whatever it was and was remanded to you. So they remanded for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. But the person says, you know, I would always love to learn how to cook. Why? I just want to learn how to cook. I've never done it. And you thinking that maybe, you know, this might be a good opportunity to put this person in a direction, you know, start them off so that later on we want to become a chef, but not knowing that this person is an arsonist. You don't know. What you know is you got a young person in front of you, very interested in want to be a cook, not knowing that they're really looking to cook you. So I say that, it might sound like a joke, But it is very, very, very possible, if I'm not sharing information, by not simply sharing information, very possible. So that as we go through these, and a lot of what the Honorable Senator before me spoke about are policy matters that can be taken up outside of the legislation, in my mind. A lot of the actual day-to-day things that need to be done to go into the actual policy, the place when those are developed. But we are on the right track. There's still a lot that has to be done, but I will go back to the point of prevention is better than cure. There has never, ever been, to the best of my knowledge, any manual that spoke to parenting when I was a youngster. All of us in this room, and forgive me for those of you who do not have this experience, I apologize. But in my mind, all of us would have learned our parenting skills from the environment from which we came. From our grandparents, parents, and those around us. Everything ain't gonna be right. There are some things that, growing up, senators, that you know that when you're not gonna do it with your children. you know what I mean? But it may have been your experience. And you learn from it, and you say to yourself, well, when I have kids, I definitely will not put them through X, Y, Z. But the people around you would have been the ones who, given what they knew in terms of parenting, that's what they did. And so we have to see this bill and all the things that it's trying to do in a positive light. Like I said, everything's not going to be correct because the world, again, continues to change at a rapid pace around us. And things that we would figure we would never be involved in when we were young, not so for a lot of younger people today. The only things that I really had some concern about, and that is in this conversation about child justice and child protection, as a person who worked in the system, there's very little that speaks to the protection of the people who have to work with these children. And because the children are not like children of the past, and I want to make this clear in this chamber, you can have a situation, if you are not careful, where a staff member is either severely damaged or can die at the hands of an aggressive child. And it has nothing to do with size or none of those things. And I believe that there's some things, and again, the policy manuals for these things, when there are things that we have to have some further discussions on as it relates to how the persons who will deal with children, not only just in the facilities and stuff, but also how police have to handle them and these kind of things, because times are very different. If you have young people who are members of gangs, we are in such, what's the word I'm looking for? Unusual times. That is, it's not far-fetched, because the movies usually are the precursor to the actual reality that we end up facing. We are in territory where young people who may be involved in gangs may also be able to put a hit out on you. It is worth thinking about. So, Mr. Speaker, I've taken up my time and I wouldn't want to go beyond, But here is to say that I fully support this legislation, and I'm obliged to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator King. Senator Cummings.
Mr. President, I'd like to move the suspension of this sitting of the Senate until 2:30 p.m. for lunch break.
The question is that this sitting be suspended until 2:30 p.m. today. Those honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. The next, the ayes have it. Accordingly, the Senate is suspended until 2:30 p.m. today.